Okay, before we begin the homework, let's just review. A trinomial product will have two binomial factors. The first two terms of the binomials multiply to give you the first term of the product. The outer and the inner terms add to give you the middle term of the product. The last two terms of the binomials multiply to give you the last term of your trinomial product. So you need two numbers that will multiply to give you this, and those same two numbers should add to give you the middle coefficient. That's the key to figuring out what the last two numbers are for each binomial. And the signs. If the last sign is positive, then the signs are the same, they're both positive. If the last sign is positive, signs are the same, they're both negative. If the last sign is negative, then the signs are different, the larger is positive. Signs are different, the larger is negative. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's review, before we start working the problems, important questions to ask yourself before you begin every problem. Number one, always check, is there a GCF? Number two, double check and make sure, is this problem a trinomial? And then you ask yourself, are the degrees in descending order? The degrees are the exponents of the variable. So the exponents of the variable have to be in descending order. And then make sure the leading coefficient is a 1. So is the leading coefficient 1? All right, so we're gonna follow those 4 questions for each problem. Okay, let me zoom in a little here. Okay, so you write the parentheses and determine the first term of each binomial. So we're going to write the parentheses. This is n squared, so that means first terms have to be n times n. The signs, this tells you the signs are different, and the larger is positive. So one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. Okay, step 3, list the factor pairs for 18. That'd be 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, 4 won't go into 18, 5 won't go into 18, 6 will, but we've already got it listed right here. Okay, now you're going to find the factor pair that will add to equal a positive 3. The larger is positive, so let's see, 18 minus 1, no. 9 minus 2, no. 6 minus 3, yes. The larger number positive, the smaller number is negative. That's where we get it. So a positive 6 and a negative 3 will be the answer. And we have to check it using FOIL. So n squared, a minus 3n and a plus 6n give you 3n, and then a negative or a minus 18. All right. Number 6, is there a GCF? No. Is it a trinomial? Yes. Are the degrees in descending order? A 2, a 1, and a 0, yes. Is the leading coefficient 1? Yes. Okay, so we start by step 1, writing the parentheses for the binomials. And this is an x squared, so first terms will be x times x. Okay, now we figure out the sign. Step 2 is figuring out the sign. This tells you the signs are going to be different, and the larger one will be positive. So one's going to be a plus, one's going to be a minus. Okay, step 3 is to write the factor pairs of the last term. So 8, that would be a 1 and 8, a 2 and 4, and 3 won't go into it. Okay, step 4, which factor pairs adds to give you the middle number? Okay, so the signs are going to be different. The larger one is going to be positive. So a plus 8 and a negative 1 do not give you a 2. A plus 4 and a negative 2 give you a 2. So it'll be a positive 4 and a negative 2. Okay, we need to check it using FOIL. First, x squared, outer is a negative 2x, inner is a 4x. Those combine to give you the middle term. And then last is a negative 8. Yes. All right. Number 7. Okay, ask yourself, is there a GCF? No. Is it a trinomial? Yes. Are the degrees in descending order? Yes. Is the leading coefficient 1? Yes. Okay, so we start by writing our parentheses for the answer and figuring out the first term. This is r squared. You get that by multiplying r times r. Then we figure out the signs. This tells you they're going to be different, and the larger one will be positive, so they're going to be different. One's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. Okay, and then we write the factor pairs of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and that's it. Then you find the factor pair that combines to give you a 4. Now remember, the signs are different. The larger one is positive. So a positive 12 and a negative 1 do not give you a 4. A positive 6 and a negative 2, positive 6 and a negative 2, that does give you 4. So it'll be a 6 and a 2. And I always just double check to make sure, no, that one can't. Okay. Now check using FOIL. First is r squared. Outer is a negative 2r, inner is a 6r. Outer and inner combine to give me the middle term, and then last is a negative 12. Okay. Number 8, ask yourself, is there a greatest common factor? No. Is it a trinomial? Yes. Are the degrees in descending order 2, 1, and 0? Yes. Is the leading coefficient 1? Yes. Okay, so we start by writing our parentheses and figuring out the first term. This is x squared, so that means it was x times x. That gave you an x squared. And then we figure out the signs. This tells me the signs are going to be different. This tells me the larger one is going to be a negative, so the signs are different. And I just like to write the larger number first. Okay, now we look at the factor pairs of 12. 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Okay, then we look for a factor pair that will combine to give me a -1. All right, the signs are different. The larger one is negative, so a -12 and a +1, that doesn't give me -1. -6 and a +2, that doesn't, but -4 and a +3 gives me a -1. So a -4 and a +3. All right, now I need to check it using FOIL. So I multiply first terms, x times x, yes. Outer terms, a 3x and a -4x will combine to give me a -1. And then multiply last terms and get a -12. So that's correct. Okay, number 9. Ask yourself, is there a GCF? No. Is it a trinomial? Yes. Are the degrees in descending order? Yes. Is the leading coefficient 1? Yes. Okay, so we can start by writing our 2 parentheses for our answer and figuring out the first term. This was w squared. You can only get that by multiplying w times w. Then we figure out the signs. This tells me the signs are going to be different. This tells me that the larger larger number is going to be negative. So one's going to be negative, one's going to be positive. Now I list the factor pairs of the last term. That'd be 1 times 6, 2 times 3. And then I find the factor pair that combines to give me a -1. Now I know the signs are going to be different. The larger is negative. So a -6, +1. A -3 and a +2, that gives me a -1. So this will be a -3 and a +2. Okay, now I have to check the answer using FOIL. W squared plus 2w and a -3w give me a -1w. And then multiplying last terms, a -3 times a +2 is a -6. Okay. Number 10, you have to ask yourself, is there a greatest common factor? Whoa, why yes, there is. I can tell that 4, this is 4 times 6, this is 4 times 8. So I'm going to be a little more advanced here showing you greatest common factors. This is 4 times y, and this is 4 times 6 times y, and this is 4 times 8. So if you see, I don't always have to factor it out to the prime factors. I can tell that they all can be divided by 4, so I'm not going to go to prime factors. I'm just going to write the 4. Okay, so the greatest common factor is a 4, and then when I take a 4 out, what's left in the first term is a y squared, and then the minus sign. The second term is a 6y, and then the third term is an 8. Okay, so now when we look at this trinomial, is there a greatest common factor in this trinomial? No. Is it a trinomial? Yes. Are the degrees in descending order? 2, 1, 0. Yes. Is the leading coefficient 1? Yes, the leading coefficient here is 1. This is outside the parentheses, so this is not the leading coefficient. This is. All right, so we have that greatest common factor of 4. That's going to be hanging around, and it's going to go with the answer when we write the answer. Okay, now we have to figure out what the first term is going to be. This is y squared, so the only way you can get that is to multiply y times y. This tells me the signs are the same, and they are both negative. So I'm going to put a minus and a minus. Now I have to list the factor pairs of 8. 1 times 8, 2 times 4, and that's it. And then I need the factor pairs that will combine to give me a negative 6. Now both of them are going to be negative, so a negative 8 and a negative 1 is a negative 9. That doesn't work. But a negative 2 and a negative 4 is a negative 6. So it's a 2 and a 4. All right, we have to check this by using FOIL. That'll be a y squared. A minus 4y and a minus 2y give me a minus 6y. And then a negative 2 times a negative 4 is a positive 8. And so that's my trinomial. And then if I multiply the GCF back into it, 4 times y squared is 4y squared. 4 times a negative 6 is a negative 24, and 4 times an 8 is a 32. All right, so we have our GCF of 4, and then our 2 binomials. Okay, number 11. Okay, first of all, ask yourself, is there a GCF? No. Is this a trinomial? 1, 2, 3. Yes. Are the degrees in descending order? 2, 1, 0. Yes. Is the leading coefficient a 1? Yes. Okay, so we start by writing our parentheses for the binomials and figuring out the first term will be t times t, because the only way to get t squared is to multiply t times t. Now we check the signs. This tells me the signs are going to be the same, and they will both be negative. So a negative and a negative. List the factor pairs of 56, 1 and 56, 2 and 28, 3 and, 3 won't go into it. Remember how to tell? 5 plus 6 is 11, and 3 won't go into 11, so 3 won't go into 56. Will 4 go into it? 4, yes. 4 will go into that 14 times. Will 5 go into it? No, because it doesn't end in a 5 or a 0. Will 6? No, and then I know 7 times 8 is a 56. Okay, now we have to find the pair that adds to give me a negative 15. Now remember, both signs are going to be a negative. So a negative 56 and a negative 1 does not give me a negative 15. Negative 28, negative 2 does not give me a negative 15. Negative 14, negative 4, no. And we can see a negative 7 and a negative 8 give me a negative 15. All right, so that's my answer. Check it using FOIL. T times t is t squared. Multiply outer, get a negative 8t. Multiply inner, get a negative 7t. And then a negative 8t and a negative 7t combine to give me my middle term. And then multiply last, and you get a positive 56. So that works. Okay, number 12. There we go. All right, you have to ask yourself, is there a GCF? No. Is this a trinomial? 1, 2, 3 terms. Yes. Are the degrees in descending order? No, they're not. They're actually in ascending order. So we need to rewrite this so the highest degree, which is your exponent, tells you your degree. The highest degree goes first. And then this one has the second highest degree, so that one will go second. And then this one has a degree of 0, because there is none. So we write that third. Now the degrees are in descending order. Is the leading coefficient 1? Yes. All right, so now we can start to factor it. I'm going to write my sets of parentheses. and figure out the first term is going to be an m, because m times m is the only way you can get m squared. This tells me the signs are going to be different, and the larger sign is going to be negative. So one's going to be negative, one's going to be positive. Okay, I'm going to write my factor pairs of 4. That's 1 and 4, and 2 times 2. Okay, now the signs are different. The larger is negative. So a negative 4 and a positive 1, that's how I get a negative 4, a positive, why am I writing 3? A negative 4 and a positive 1 will give me a negative 3, which is the middle coefficient. So this is going to be a minus 4 and a plus 3. All right, we have to check it using FOIL. Multiply first terms, multiply outer and inner, and the outer and inner will combine to give me the middle term, and then multiply last terms. Why did I write 3? Sheesh. Good thing I checked it, because that's how I saw my mistake. Okay, it's a 4 and a 1. Okay, first terms, outer and inner give me middle, and then last terms, a negative 4. All right, now it's correct. Okay, number 13. Oh. Okay, ask yourself a couple of questions. Is there a greatest common factor? No. 1, 2, 3. Yes, it's a trinomial. Are the degrees in descending order? Look, the degrees are the exponents. A 2, a 1, and a 0, so yes. Is the leading coefficient 1? Yes. Okay, so we can start to factor by writing the parentheses for the binomial and writing what the first term will be. The only way to get it squared is to multiply a times a. Okay, this tells me the signs are the same, and they are, that's an E, and they are both going to be positive, so plus and a plus. Now I list the factor pairs of 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, 5 won't go into it, 6 times 4, but I've already got it listed here. Okay, now I look at these, I'm looking for the pair that adds to give me 10. Their signs are the same, they're both positive, so that makes it easy. 24 plus 1 is not 10. 12 plus 2 is not 10. 8 plus 3 is not 10. 6 plus 4 is 10. So this will be a 6 and a 4. Now I check it using FOIL. First, a squared, outer 6a and inner 4a combine to give me the 10a, and then multiply last terms to get that. All right, let's go to 14. Okay, ask yourself a few questions. First of all, is there a greatest common factor? No. Is this a trinomial? Yes. Are the degrees in descending order? Yes. Is the leading coefficient 1? Yes. Okay, so we can go ahead and start factoring. The first term will be h and h, because the only way to get h squared is to multiply h times h. The signs, this tells me that they are both going to be the same. This tells me that they are both going to be positive. Okay, now to figure out the numbers, I take the factor pairs of 27, 2 won't go into it, 3 times 9, 4 won't go into it, 5 won't, 6 won't, 7 won't, 8 won't, 9 will, but we've already got that listed. Okay, so which factor pairs will combine to give me a 12? And it's the 3 and the 9 that combine to give me the middle coefficient. So we'll have a 3 and a 9. Now I check it using FOIL. First, outer and inner will combine to give me the middle, and then the last. That's correct. Okay, number 15. Okay, we need to ask ourselves the 4 questions. Is there a greatest common factor? X, X, X. This one doesn't have an X though. These have y's, but this one, so there's no greatest common factor. Is this a trinomial? Wait a minute. This is not a trinomial. We cannot factor this using the method we learned, but it's got 4 terms. How do you factor 4 terms? By grouping the first 2 together and the last 2 together, and then taking the GCF out of the first group and taking, this is x times y, this is 2 times y. So the GCF is y, taking y out of the second group. When we get to this spot, the binomials for each one should be the same. So I'm going to factor out or take the binomial of x plus 2 out of the first group. I'm left with an x. Taking it out of the second group, I'm left with a y. All right. There we go. Check it by using FOIL. X times x is x squared. X times y is xy. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times y is 2y. Okay. Number 16. All right. Is there a GCF? No. Is it a trinomial? 1, 2, 3. Yes. Are the degrees in descending order? The degrees are the exponents. 2, 1, 0. Yes. And is the leading coefficient a 1? Yes. Okay. So we can go ahead and start factoring. Put the parentheses. That's a g squared, so we'll have a g and a g because that is the only thing you can multiply to get g squared. Figure out the signs. This tells me the signs are going to be different. This one tells me the larger will be a negative, so the signs are different. One's negative, one's positive. All right, now we're going to list the factor pairs of 63. 1 and 63. 2 won't go into it. Hello, it's not even. 3 will go into it, so 3 and 21. Will 4 go into it? Let's see, 4. No. Will 5? No. 6? No. 7? Yes. 7 times 9 is 63. Okay, now we're going to look for the pair that combines to give me a negative 2. Okay, the signs are going to be different. The larger is negative, so a negative 63 and a positive 1 won't work. I'm just going to jump down here because y'all can probably see it already, that a negative 9 and a positive 7 will give me a negative 2. So this will be a minus 9 and a plus 7. Okay, check using FOIL. G times g is g squared. A plus 7g and a minus 9g give me a negative 2. And then multiplying last, a negative 9 and positive 7 is a negative 63. Okay, number 17. Okay, you ask yourself, is there a GCF? Yes, there is. I can see it. 2 will go into both of these. So this is 2 times x. This is 2 times 5. So when I take a 2 out, I'm left with a 2x plus 5. Okay, now, is this a trinomial? No, it's not. If it's not a trinomial, we cannot factor it using the method we learned. Okay, it's not 4 terms, so we can't factor it by groupings. The only thing you could do is factor out the GCF, so we're done with that one. Okay, number 18. Okay, ask yourself a couple of questions. Is there a greatest common factor? No. This can be divisible by 3. This is divisible by 3, but this one isn't. Okay, no greatest common factor. Is it a trinomial? Yes, it's 3 terms. Are the degrees in descending order? Remember, the degrees are the little exponents, a 2, a 1, and no degree, 0. So yes, it's in descending order. Is the leading coefficient 1? No, it's not. So there is no greatest common factor. The leading coefficient is not 1, so we cannot factor it using the method we learned, and actually this one will end up being prime. Next week you'll learn another method that you can check with this one, but as of today, you don't know it, and this one is a prime problem.
All right.